We all have chapters that we would rather keep unpublished. That quote is not original to me. That quote does come to my mind as I reviewed this story over the week. We all have chapters we would rather keep unpublished. The life of David is exciting. It provides many great childhood Sunday school and vacation Bible school stories. And though I can promise you the story that we're about to cover today was never covered in elementary Sunday school, this was the kind of story that was saved for the adult class to cover. The life of David can be presented in Instagram style, only the highlight reels. And the young fellow who followed the Lord and the great songs that he wrote, such as "The Lord is my shepherd." There are the story, of course, of him going up against the giant Goliath. There's the story of him playing his lyre and soothing Saul. They're the stories that have been covered up till now in our sermon series. All of these are great and wonderful. And like many folks, you put the best on Instagram and in Facebook. It's easy and tempting just to focus on that one great lesson after another. But Scripture is very real, and we get the good and the bad and the ugly. David, today we're going to look at his story, what this means to us, and to see, even in this less than stellar moment, what it took place. What does it mean then, and what does it mean now? The story begins, and that was part of our lesson, that in the spring of the year, the time when the kings go out to battle, David remained in Jerusalem. That is the first problem. Right there, it's almost like the writer is letting us know this is what's going to happen. This is not good. A king is supposed to do king work and go into battle in the spring. He is not doing his job. He has sent Joab and some others to go out and to do it. And he is sitting there in Jerusalem. It's not even a case of, which I would excuse, a case of saying, hey, could y'all go out, set up camp, and I'll come there in about 2 days? I'd give you that. You've been around a while. Yeah, take a little luxury and don't necessarily set up the tents. But really, David, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But no, he is not. He used to be the kind of guy that would get his hands dirty in king work, and he's not doing it. And then he's just kind of lounging around. He's out on his upper roof, and he sees Bathsheba bathing. Now again, remember the homes, basically one big box, maybe 2 rooms, but on top would be kind of halfway up walls, maybe out of the height of our wall here, maybe up a little bit halfway up on the wood there, was on top of the roof, and that was like a room itself. Rain is sporadic, so a good deal of the year, people could use that place. If for sleeping, you could put a little tent, set up a tent up there, and again, work very, very well. Because the king's house is so large and up on a hill, he can see things that normally would not be seen. So that's the situation. He's up there and he sees. Now, he's out looking. The timing was off. You can't blame him for, oh my goodness, I just saw something. Don't blame him for that. But he continues to look. And he continues to look, and he even asks, who is that fine young lady over there? Then he's told she is the wife of Uriah. Now, up to this point, still in a gray zone, but it's, okay, you looked, you shouldn't have looked, you couldn't help looking, but you kept looking, you couldn't help that. You even asked, but once you got the word that she is the wife of Uriah, that should have been, okay, boom, off limits, go look somewhere else, you know. But he sends for her. It's a sense of he can take, I can just take what does not belong to me. David once saw things as gifts. That's what we talked about He saw things as gifts. And now, I like what I see. I'm going to take. And so, they come together. And there's an epilogue to this encounter. A delicate situation that must be addressed. And so David thinks about, let's bring Uriah back for a little rest and relaxation. And he brings them there into the palace and says, you've done so well. You deserve a break at home. Go and enjoy yourself. Wink, wink, nod, nod. But Uriah will not enjoy the comforts. My men are out there suffering. How can I just enjoy the warmth and comfort of my home? He sleeps in the doorway even. Again, we're seeing a problem. David used to do things like that. That's what David used to be. So David has to go to Plan B. And he brings in Joab, the commander. And I learned while doing research was actually his nephew. I did not know that. But there's a reference in Chronicles about him being the son of a sister to David. And he brings him in with instructions. Now, Joab, I could do a whole session on Joab, bring together some notes. He's just a sleaze bag. He's a shady character. He's a hatchet man. He is worse than that relative that you have to invite to a wedding. You hope the relative won't come. You know the gift is going to be inappropriate. You just say, well, bring it. I got a receipt so I can return it and get something I really need. He's worse than that kind of relative. And that's it. David's having to turn to people like him. Once David had Jonathan, a best friend. Once he had Abigail in his life, he would say, think about what you could be doing and what you should be doing. There seems to be no one of good character who was close to him. No old friend from the old days who could just call him on things. He has no peers. He has no good company. And David says, okay, put Uriah in the toughest place of the battle. And when the battle is at its worst, everybody pulls back and leaves him there. And so it happens. And there are many losses in this battle. It's like the troops were particularly put in a bad place. There are many losses. And Joab reports on the losses and says, and add the phrase, Uriah died too. David knows the veiled message. And he responds, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press attack against the city and destroy it. And say this to encourage Joab. At this point, Bathsheba is brought into the household and is cared for. So he's not discarding her on the side. Still, we see in David a gradual, slow fade. Step by step, he has walked away from who he was. I once heard it said that nobody really falls away from the faith. They walk away one step at a time. We just see the final result. David is isolated from the right kind of friends. He sits back instead of doing his duty. He compromises his integrity bit by bit. David quit seeing everything that came his way as a gift. Now he is entitled. He has lost self-control. There's no secret. This will bear bitter fruit down the road. The rock bottom moment for David, he thinks he's covered up everything, is when Nathan the prophet comes to him and tells him a story of a man who had a lamb that was just, it was like a pet to the family. And there was a rich man who had so many sheep. But the rich man wanted, let's have that lamb as a meal. And so it was taken from the man who just had one. Well, David hears the story that way. He said, I'm paraphrasing it, that guy needs to have his rear end kicked. And then Nathan says, You are that man. Now, did he say it like, you are the man? Or did he say it, you, David, that's you. You are the man. We do not know. All of a sudden, David sees it in clear light, what he has done. In this dark moment, we do see hope in three ways. First, we see God has not given up on David. God cared enough to confront. That's a good reminder that sometimes telling somebody until you change the behavior, you can't come back. To call somebody out on their behavior, even though they might right in the moment, that is the most loving thing to do. The fact that Nathan is able to come in, we still see there are some good people in David's circle. He might be keeping them at arm's length. He's kept them at arm's length. But there's still some good people to whom he has access. And we see David respond. This 32nd Psalm, part of it was read today. I believe it comes out of this period. The 51st Psalm typically is used in connection with this story. And that's clearly stated. It comes from this time. David just gets slapped in the face. The good news is, he confesses, he realizes he has done wrong. Of course, if this story was read at First Presbyterian in Doe Run, Texas, our friend Tom, our friend who owns the best body shop and auto shop in 5 counties, and he hears this story, sad to say, several instances come to mind. Last week I talked about Tom and his high school friend, Pastor Dale, how they kind of quietly over the years done some work with their classmates and have needed help along the way. And Tom remembers, that was that one time he and Pastor Dale, they tag teamed with Lyle. One of their classmates, he had gotten off the rails. Many ways he'd gotten off the rails, and they just basically pulled him aside. The two of them. They called him out. Said, you're better than this. They called him on his stuff. What were you thinking when you did A, B, and C? And they called him up. This is not who you are. It's not who you are. Dale got preaching with him. That's who you are as a child of God. Tom remembers that. He remembers Gus, fellow who, and actually still works for him, who oversaw a crew at the body shop. And Gus was great at his work, and he led this group of men there, and was well respected. And then step by step, he began to slip the people with whom he was hanging out, how he was taking care of his own personal life. It was affecting his workplace. In fact, there was the day that fortunately a guy on his crew said, let me double check this work. Well, Gus has signed off on it, but I'm not too sure. Something doesn't look right. And it wasn't. And Tom had to tell the customer, we'll make it right. It's going to take us another day. Make a discount and make all that good. And then for a while, everybody was having to go behind Gus because the work was not what it should be. And he got his own confrontation. Actually, Tom didn't do it. Don, the oldest employee in the place, kind of a sage among the workers, just pulled Gus aside one day and just said, look what you're doing. Gus did get it together.